Hilda Doolittle, 1886–1961, known as H.D., was a central figure in the Imagist movement, which sought to strip poetry of its excesses and ornamentation and replace it with clarity, immediacy, and sensory precision. Her poem, Oread, written in 1914, exemplifies these goals and remains one of the most iconic pieces of Imagist verse. Despite its brevity, Oread is rich in imagery, mythological allusion, and layered meaning. It fuses the voice of the mythic Oread, a mountain nymph from Greek mythology, with a commanding invocation to the sea, producing a moment of profound convergence between land and ocean, feminine desire and natural force, stillness and motion. This analysis will explore historical and literary context, Imagist principles, mythological underpinnings, structural and formal elements, symbolism and transformation, gendered and feminist readings, philosophical and psychoanalytic dimensions, H.D.'s literary legacy, historical and literary context. 1. H.D. and Imagism. H.D. was a close associate of Ezra Pound, who coined the term Imagist and was instrumental in promoting the movement. Imagism emphasized direct treatment of the subject, economy of language, musical rhythm, not metronomic meter, precise visual imagery. H.D.'s Oread exemplifies these principles. Pound praised her work for its classical clarity and chiseled form, considering her one of the truest adherents of Imagism. 2. A modernist voice. As a modernist, H.D. rejected Victorian poetic excess and sentimentality. She instead favored mythic resonance, psychological intensity, symbolic condensation. In Oread, these qualities combine to produce a voice that is at once ancient and contemporary, feminine and elemental, personal and cosmic. Summary of the poem. Oread is a dramatic monologue, a call to action issued by a mountain nymph, Oread, to the sea. In 6 terse lines, she commands the sea to rise and move, whirl up, sea. Describes the sea's waves using arboreal metaphors, pointed pines, pools of fir. Invites, or challenges, the sea to overwhelm the land, particularly, our rocks. The fusion of sea and forest, wave and tree, and water and land occurs through metaphor, personification, and imperative language. The result is a violent yet sensual union of natural forces, possibly symbolic of desire, transformation, or confrontation. Line-by-line analysis. 1. Whirl up, sea. The imperative, whirl up, commands the sea to rise, become agitated, dynamic. The verb suggests a cyclonic energy, a spiraling motion of water and power. This command positions the speaker as assertive, challenging or invoking a natural force. 2. Whirl your pointed pines. Here, the sea is described as possessing pointed pines, a striking metaphorical overlay. The image fuses forest with ocean. Waves are likened to conifer trees. This synesthetic metaphor collapses visual categories, creating a mythic vision of nature. 3. Splash your great pines. The command continues, but with more fluidity. Splash evokes both sound and motion. Great pines could refer to waves or tree-like crests, further blurring boundaries. 4. On our rocks. The phrase localizes the action. The sea is to crash its pines upon the rocks of the speaker's domain, the mountains. The possessive, our, may refer to the land, the Oreads, or the feminine realm. 5. Hurl your green over us. Hurl increases the aggressive, urgent tone. Green denotes the sea's color but could also symbolize life, nature, fertility, or even envy. The sea is invited, or dared, to cross a boundary and cover the speaker, which may represent a yearning for immersion, union, or transformation. 6. Cover us with your pools of fur. The final line completes the fusion of imagery. Pools of fur merges trees with water, as if coniferous trees have become seafoam, or the sea has taken on the qualities of a mountain forest. Coverous suggests climax, submission, or completion, either an embrace or a surrender. Symbolism and imagery. 1. Fusion of sea and forest. HD uses a sustained metaphor in which waves are imagined as pines, spray as fir, and the sea becomes a forest in motion. This synthesis symbolizes the blurring of opposites: land, sea, stillness, motion, rootedness, fluidity. The desire to transcend natural boundaries, to merge identities or domains. A mythic world where categories collapse and elemental forces become one. 2. Erotic and sensual undertones. Many scholars read the poem as an erotic invocation. The seas advance toward the land, the desire to be covered, and the surging language evoke sexual passion. Yearning for union. The interplay of dominance and submission. The speaker's voice is both commanding and receptive, enacting a kind of cosmic consummation between forces of nature. 3. Feminist and mythological dimensions. The speaker is an Oread, a Greek mountain nymph associated with wild nature, forests, and caves. By giving voice to a mythic female figure, HD reclaims female agency and desire. A connection to pre-patriarchal nature-based spirituality. A poetic tradition that centers female perspective and power. The poem challenges classical gender binaries. The sea, often male-coded, is invoked by a female voice. Nature is both penetrative and receptive. Structural and stylistic features. 1. Imagist technique. Oread embodies Imagism's core values. Concise diction, only 30 words. Visual clarity. Each image is sharply etched. Metaphorical compression. Trees and waves are fused. Musicality through alliteration and rhythm. The poem's syntax is tight, direct, and energetic. Each line builds force and motion. 2. Use of imperatives. The repeated commands, whirl, splash, hurl, cover, create a tone of invocation or ritual. The speaker acts not passively, but as a conductor of natural forces, positioning herself as a kind of priestess, lover, or nature deity. 3. Sensory language and synesthesia. HD's imagery blends sight, green, pointed, great. Sound, splash, whirl. Touch, cover, hurl. This sensory overlay enhances the immersive experience of the poem. The metaphors produce synesthesia, where one sense merges with another. Interpretive frameworks. 1. Psychoanalytic and Jungian readings. Some critics view the poem through a Jungian lens, interpreting the sea and land as symbols of conscious and unconscious mind. Masculine and feminine energies. Ego and id. In this view, the poem enacts a descent into the unconscious, or a merging of inner psychic forces. The sea becomes the oceanic unconscious, overwhelming the rational mind. 2. Queer and feminist readings. Given HD's queer identity and feminist politics, Oread has been read as a queer erotic fantasy, subverting heterosexual norms. A reclamation of female desire, spoken by a mythic woman commanding nature. A challenge to patriarchal poetics, in which women are often silent, passive, or objectified. By using a mythic female speaker to command the natural world, HD reclaims voice, power, and subjectivity. 3. Eco-critical readings. From an eco-critical perspective, Oread celebrates the vital, chaotic energy of nature. Blurs the boundaries between human, mythic, and ecological worlds. Invites a sacramental view of the natural world, where forests and seas are spiritually charged. The poem resists the Cartesian separation of nature and self, instead suggesting a mystic unity. Legacy and influence. Oread remains one of the most anthologized poems in Imagist and modernist literature. Its legacy includes proof that poetic force does not require length, a template for mythic minimalism, a landmark in queer and feminist poetic expression. It continues to influence modern and postmodern poets, eco-poetry and eco-poetics, queer and feminist literary traditions. Comparison with other works. 1. With Ezra Pound's In a Station of the Metro. Both poems are Imagist masterpieces. Use compressed metaphor and juxtaposition. Evoke ephemeral beauty. But while Pound's poem is urban and observational, HD's is mythic and incantatory. A spoken invocation rather than a visual impression. 2. With HD's later work. In her later poems, e.g., Helen in Egypt trilogy, HD continued to explore myth from a female perspective. Spiritual transformation, war, loss, and healing. Oread anticipates these themes in miniature, a lyric precursor to her epic mythopoetic later work. Conclusion. HD's Oread is a brilliant distillation of poetic intensity. In just 6 lines, she merges myth and nature, desire and force, land and sea, feminine power and natural majesty. The poem is both a lyrical spell and a philosophical meditation, asking us to reconsider the boundaries between bodies and landscapes. The power of language to evoke the elemental. The role of myth in shaping our inner lives. In the voice of the Oread, we hear not just a mountain nymph, but the voice of modernist womanhood, reclaiming command, voice, and visibility through image, sound, and invocation.